Now, today, good morning, everyone. And today we are going to study three important properties of solids. One is the electrical properties, the second one is magnetic, third one is dielectric. And I do concede that my knowledge about all these is limited. And whatever limited knowledge I have, this is in the domain of electronics engineering. And to a small extent, it is in the domain of electronics in physics. But whatever little experience, the little knowledge I have gathered so far, and that will be enough, more than enough for your examination purpose. And more on that, you can study from your physics programs and from internet anywhere you want, because knowledge is now abundant, abundantly available in the internet. But all those are not reliable things. You have to judiciously decide which one is acceptable, which not. Now, there are three types of solids so far as the electrical properties are concerned. As you know, one is conductor, whose conductivity is high, greater than 10 to the power 2 Simon centimeter inverse. The Simon is now the substitute for ohm inverse, or mho, as we used to call earlier. So that Simon centimeter inverse, this is a mixed unit. This is SI and this is CGS. So this mixed unit, often chemists use Simon centimeter inverse. And usually the conductivity lies between 10 to the power 9 to 10 to the power 2. Then it is a conductor. For example, silver has very high conductivity, 10 to the power 6 Simon per centimeter. And we can have two types of conductors. Metallic conductors, whose conduction mechanism is free electrons, and electrolytic conductors, where the mode of mode of conduction is ionic migration. This is ionic migration, this is electron migration. The mechanisms of conductions, they're different. And in insulators, we have very low conductivity, less than 10 to the power minus 8 Simon centimeter inverse. And it can range from 10 to the power minus 8 to as low as 10 to the power minus 18. And semiconductors, which are the most fascinating, exotic substances for the electronics industry, their conductivity lies intermediate between 10 to the power minus 8 to 10 to the power 2. As high as 10 to the power 2, that is the starting point of conductors, and the starting point of insulators. So the intermediate conductivity is possessed by semiconductors. And the most important difference between conductors and semiconductors, as you must be knowing, is the effect of temperature on conductivity. For conductors, the conductivity decreases with increase in temperature. This is very, very important. This decreases with increase in temperature. But in case of semiconductors, the Americans, they pronounce as semiconductors, but the British semi. As I told you, anti and anti. The American, they call everything anti-electron, anti-activity. So they always say anti and semi. But British semi, conductivity increases with increase in temperature. So that is the huge contrast. Here, conductivity increases with increase in temperature, as we shall discuss shortly. But you can answer me from your simple knowledge of physics, why the conductivity decreases with increase in temperature for conductors. We will talk about semiconductors very soon. Can you raise your hand? Anybody wanting to tell me the reason why the conductivity decreases in a conductor when temperature increases? This is the most easy thing that ever A Dia is struggling again and again. She is going away of network. Yes. Any hand raised? Why the conductivity decreases? Oh, I'm so. I guessed. I thought that most of you have electronics as your one of the papers, one of the subjects. And Swayam, yes, Swayam, yes. Tell me, you are open. You are open. Tell me. No, I'm not able to hear you. So again, I'm muting you. Dibya.
Yes, sir. When temperature increases, the molecular vibrations increases, so they restrict the movement of the free electrons.
Precisely correct. Mute yourself. Yes, when the temperature increases, the vibrations in the solid, the amplitude of vibrations increases for all the entities, may it be ions, may it be atoms. So when the amplitude of vibration increases in all the particles in the solid, then the electron faces a lot of resistance. So resistance increases means conductance decreases. That is the simplest answer. But what happens to the semiconductors? Why the opposite thing happens? The temperature increase brings about increase in conductivity. We will discuss just after a bit. Now see, semiconductors, just try to very attentively listen to me, look to the slides, are of two types: intrinsic, extrinsic. Intrinsic means without any foreign added substance, no doping. It is the virgin substance, silicon and germanium, undoped, virgin. They are called intrinsic semiconductors. They are also called high temperature semiconductors, which are untenable for room temperature use. So some modification has to be done onto the intrinsic semiconductors like silicon and germanium so that it can be used at room temperature. So that we convert the intrinsic semiconductors into extrinsic semiconductor by doping some chemicals, some metals, some non-metals, some metalloids, some foreign substances has to be incorporated in deep into the lattice homogeneously so that it will be used as a semiconductor at room temperature. Otherwise, silicon and germanium, they have conductivity in the range, as you know, from 10 to the power minus 8 to 10 to the power 2 Simon centimeter inverse. And for intrinsic, it is very low. And when it is doped, the conductivity is enhanced. Of course, remains within that range. So silicon and germanium, they are not used without being doped. But if they will be used at high temperature. We'll know why. In that case, they will be called intrinsic semiconductors. But usually they are made. Are you able to hear me? ନାଇଁ ଇଏ ପଳେଇଥିଲା ଆସିଗଲା ଓକେ ହଁ ଆସିଥିଲା ପଳେଇଲାଣି just a minute boys and girls I am talking to my advisor, my guide, my philosopher, my Kuni brother. हाँ हाँ मझे पलैला पुणी आसला हाँ ठीक अच्छे ओके ओके ओवर ओके are you able to listen to me okay so let us complete I have to share the screen and again no it is there and most importantly the recording is going on that is the beauty when this Zoom is disconnected the recording is going on in this so there will be no problem so in extrinsic semiconductors are you able to hear me we have to dope add mix impurities impurities are good so one type of doping gives rise to p type of semiconductors already we had discussed about p and n out of natural defects present in the crystal but now we shall be artificially introducing some dopants for example if you add a bit of group 13 elements say gallium indium thallium boron gallium aluminum so group 13 element then it will produce p type of semiconductors it will produce p hole positive hole the migration mechanism is through positive holes and that will be p type of semiconductor so when silicon or germanium is doped with either gallium boron indium group 13 then that will form p type we'll discuss how and why and if it is doped with any 15 group elements like arsenic antimony say phosphorus then it will form n type of semiconductors because free electrons conduct electricity and again we talk about binary semiconductors both intrinsic and extrinsic both this is the second type of semiconductors both intrinsic and extrinsic it will be also can be used virgin and also can be doped to form extrinsic so we'll talk about that later now before that let us talk something about the theory of conductivity because the atoms in a solid for example we take a metallic crystal is if you take an ionic crystal they do not conduct electricity if it is ideal that but we have known that a non-ideal crystals having Schottky defect or Frenkel defect or even metal excess defect metal deficiency defect all of them conduct electricity to some way or the other the non-stoichiometric defects they really become semiconductors but stoichiometric defects like Frenkel and that Schottky, they do produce some conductivity, but that is less than semiconductors, the non-stoichiometric defects. But here we are talking of a virgin element like silicon or germanium. That as such will not conduct much. It will be a semiconductor at higher temperature. But, in that case, supposing you think of silicon, which has a diamond-like structure, each silicon or germanium is bonded with 4 other silicon or germanium atoms in a gigantic 3D network. So what happens, the atomic orbitals, they combine to form so many molecular orbitals. And the highest occupied molecular orbital, where the electrons remain, is called the valence band. So let it be sodium metal, which is a conductor. Let it be an insulator, let it be a semiconductor, whatever, there will be 2 bands. One is the highest occupied molecular orbital where the electrons will go, and stay. That is the valence band. And its next, that is an antibonding molecular orbital. The next higher molecular orbital, where the highest unoccupied molecular orbital is the conduction band. So there are two bands, here this, supposing this is the valence band, this is the conduction band. For insulator, the gap is very large. So it is absolutely impossible, even if we raise the temperature, the electrons cannot merely jump to go to the conduction band. It's not a height jump, it's in terms of energy, because this is the energy profile. You don't think of it's a height jump, just like you high jump. It's not that. So the energy band gap is so high, it is greater than 10 electron volt per electron. So it is not possible for the valence band electrons to jump into conduction band. Unless the electrons come to the conduction band, it cannot conduct electricity. Electrons have to come to the conduction band, then only it will respond to a PD. What is PD? A potential difference. Some electrons, however small it may be, have to come to the conduction band so that it will respond to PD. Otherwise, no electron in the valence band will respond to PD, because they are not free electrons. Their movement is restricted. They are being totally captured by the atomic codes, positive codes. So when they transcend the gap and come to the conduction band, then only they are called free electrons. They respond to PD. But in case of conductors, the band gap is zero. This is called band gap. Band gap is almost zero. Therefore, even at a room temperature, many electrons spontaneously move about in the conduction band. So by application of PD, they drift in a particular direction and conduct electricity. And at 0 Kelvin, I repeat, at 0 Kelvin, all the electrons from valence band enter into conduction band, and all metals, they become superconductors. If all the electrons, valence electrons, all the valence electrons or electrons in the valence band come to the conduction band, then the conductivity rises manifold, and that is the case of superconductivity. So all metals are superconductors at 0 Kelvin, minus 273 degrees Celsius. But at higher temperature, you see at higher temperature, the number of electrons which exist in the CB. What is CB? Conduction band. CB and VB is a valence band. Is less. At higher temperature, the number of electrons in the conduction band is less. Therefore, it's not a superconductor. It is a conductor, but not a superconductor. But can easily transit from the valence band to the conduction band by application of a PD. Even if lower number of electrons are in the conduction band at lower temperature, but the moment you apply PD, so there will be induction. More and more electrons will transit from the valence band to the conduction band, and it will start conducting smoothly the electricity. And the electrons, when come to the conduction band, they are called free electrons. Even at room temperature, conductors, they have quite appreciable number of electrons in the conduction band. But some electrons also are there in the valence band, so the conductivity is not as high as a superconductor. But at 0 Kelvin, all of them come to the conduction band, and the conduction is infinitely large, and that becomes a superconductor. Now, the case of semiconductor is very, very interesting. The band gap is not as high as insulators, but not zero as conductors. It is between 0.5 to 5 electron volt. The band gap is between 0.5 to 5 electron volt, and therefore when you raise the temperature, thermal energy is enough for elevating some of the electrons in the valence band to the conduction band and conduct electricity. So they are intrinsic semiconductors. They need heat energy, they need raising of temperature to show their conductivity. Otherwise, they are as good as insulators. Only when you raise the temperature to some optimum value, then that thermal energy is good enough for making electrons, some of the electrons to transit to the conduction band and conduct electricity. But in electronics industry, everyone will be using in the room temperature. Therefore, intrinsic semiconductors are of no use. That is theoretically studied, but they have to be doped with some dopants like group 13 or group 15 elements in a very calculated manner, so that the conductivity can be tailor-made, can be predicted, can be tailor-made to, to be applicable for a particular electronics gadget or purpose. Now, yes, I have already told that semiconductors intrinsic is of no use because high temperature is needed, but doping with impurities, they can be converted to a room temperature semiconductor. Those are called extrinsic semiconductors. Now, see what happens when you dope silicon or germanium. These are the real virgin semiconductors, but of no use unless they are converted to extrinsic. What happens to those semiconductors when doped with any group 15 element like phosphorus, arsenic, antimony? Now see, all of you see, here is a phosphorus atom replacing a silicon atom. So intermittently in the entire crystal, some of the silicon sites are replaced by phosphorus or arsenic or antimony, any group 15 element. You know, such element has 5 valence electrons, and silicon and germanium has 4 valence electrons. So the phosphorus which has occupied the place of silicon will have an extra 5th electron, which will not be bonding with anyone. So that will remain free. So as many number of phosphorus atoms are there in the doped silicon, same number of free electrons will be available. Those electrons that do not have any work to do, they are easily, they can be converted. They come to the conduction band because they are free. They are not bound by any atom. So even at room temperature, if you apply PD, they will drift and show conductivity, right? So this is very simple to understand how the N type of semiconductors, they are formed by doping a group 15 element like phosphorus, like arsenic, like antimony, which has got the 5th electron, not to bind with anyone. It is isolated and free, and once you apply PD, they will respond and conduct in a normal way. N stands for normal. It is by free electron. But on the other hand, if you use a group 13 element like boron, aluminum, gallium, then we get P type of semiconductor. See the picture. See the picture, Mr. Swayam Sarit. Are you looking to your screen? Okay. You may not look at me. And so those who have their videos open, they have got little risk. If you do not look to your screens, then you cannot know what I am doing. So for my benefit, you are opening your screen, not for your benefit. For my benefit, I can have a ready reckoning what is the chemistry, because not only I'm a chemistry teacher, but also I learn the chemistry of phases, chemistry of human relationship, because the chemistry is the other name of love to me. So that's why I need Sajan Singh is missing, because he is the one who volunteers, irrespective of anything, to show his video to me. So after a long time, I would like to use the word ministry came and delivered a half cup of hot drink and uh, a biscuit, which I will not name whose biscuit. That biscuit is named after one of my students who are now with me, and that is the name of that biscuit has been X biscuit. Now see, if some silicon atoms is replaced by boron or gallium, usually gallium, boron or indium, then what happens? Boron, aluminum, gallium, these have 3 valence electron, but silicon had 4. So what will be the fate of this one, which was already bonded with another silicon with a covalent bond? There is no corresponding electron for boron, of boron. So this acts as a positive hole. It doesn't have anything. So this acts as a positive hole, and electron from any bonding pair can migrate and fill that hole to make another covalent bond which was not there, and create another hole here in this bond. Similarly, another electron from the bonding pair can migrate to fill the hole and become a covalent bond, and a new hole is created there in the left side. So in this way, yes, Sajan is raising his hand. There is some problem. Yes, Sajan. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Arthur Smith is waiting.
Who is waiting?
Arthur Smith.
Arrow, you tell Arrow Smith, he objects to be called as Arrow. His name is A-R-O, but he's not in the waiting room. Arrow.
Tell me in the WhatsApp.
But he is not in the waiting room. Waiting room is reflected. Ask him to revisit again. You just let him cut and then ask for another entry. I will induct him. So Ms. Soumyasri Panda, are you there? Yes. Titi Pragya, Subhasri Das, Mr. Sushovan Misra, Vivek Kumar, you always struggle to enter. Your little sister is giving voice message sometimes. Sandhya Deepa, Priyanka, and Payal, Pratyasa, Monali, Disa, Miss Kareem, Dibyajyoti, Nwesa Panda, Arpita Naik, and I think why? No. Oh, Adi, where are you? Swayam Adi, yes. Mr. Das, who is Das? Mr. Das. Satyajit Das. Are you here? Satyajit Das. Shasitila, but now he's absent. Might be some problem. Anyway, let us complete. Yes, Satyajit is there. Hands down. Okay. So, this boron or aluminum or gallium, they have 3 valence electrons. And the fourth place is missing. No counterpart for this electron. So that is a positive hole, and from the adjacent bonding position, one electron migrates, produces another positive hole. So the holes, they migrate in opposite direction, and the electrons hop from one bonding pair to the hole, and therefore the electron migrate, and the migration mechanism or the conduction mechanism is never free electron. They were never free. They are captured by a hole. So the physicists, they used to call it the migration of positive holes, and it's a P type of semiconductors. So that then we talk about binary or binary intrinsic and binary extrinsic. Now, Sajan, again, RO is missing. RO, are you there? मैं क्या करूं? मैं क्या करूं? I'm sorry. Nature is such a thing. It hardly changes. You know, it's very difficult. This is different. You know, this is a compound. You can call it a compound. You can write down. Not write down. I will give you the notes. No problem. This can be called compound semiconductors. Silicon, germanium were elemental semiconductors. These are binary semiconductors are also called compound semiconductors. And these can be intrinsic, that means virgin, I mean without addition of any impurity, or it can be extrinsic. So let's first talk about this type. One element from group 13 and the other element from group 15, which were used as independently as dopants for elemental semiconductors like silicon and germanium. Now when they combine to form a compound, a covalent compound, gallium arsenide, indium stibide, aluminum phosphide, group 13 and group 15. So they form a compound, then they become a compound semiconductor. They also have exactly similar structure as diamond, as zinc blende. You know, each arsenic is bonded to 4 gallium, and each gallium is bonded to 4 arsenic. You must be wondering how. It is because the group 15 element forms a dative bond with 1 gallium. It has a lone pair to form a dative bond, and other unpaired electrons are engaged in normal covalent bond. So even if both belong to different groups, but the structure, ironically, is tetrahedral network, like zinc blende, I mean diamond structure. So therefore I have written gallium arsenide unit cell is like a zinc blende structure, similar to diamond. Band gap is in the range of at room temperature, the band gap is 1.42. That falls in the semiconductor range. It is intrinsic, but it can be made extrinsic. The conductivity can, because the band gap is a little high, so you have to dope so that the band gap comes close to 0, but it can't be 0. If it is 0, it becomes a conductor. It comes to 0. and then it becomes a semiconductor, good semiconductor at room temperature. Each gallium, now I'm describing its structure. Swayam, you are asking something? Yes, Swayam?
Sir, Orosmith says that this group has been logged. This meeting has been logged.
Logged?
Yes, sir. So he is not able to wait in the waiting room.
I have not logged the meeting. I am not in a habit of logging the meeting.
Sir, I am sending you the picture. You can see it, the message that shows in the.
I understand. I trust you, my dear. But now I want to find out the way how to unlock the meeting. Pause, stop video, allow participants to annotate, show names of annotators, hide control, and how to, yes, here. Security. Yes, I will go to the security and no. Security, enable waiting room. Yes.
To stop the spread of coronavirus,
I have enabled. Ask him to enter.
Step out
Okay, sir.
only if it is very
I have not locked, but I have disabled the waiting room. Not I. It immediately happened when the security.
It was sir locked.
Also, I have locked the meeting. Yes. Yes, I have unlocked it. Yes. Thank you, Swayam.
It's okay, sir.
Ask him to enter. Oh, I'm so sorry. When the Zoom disconnected, I didn't know that it's a new security measures that automatically my audio is my microphone is cut off. That I could discover yesterday. Nobody could hear me. I have to try, and then found that there is a cross sign on my microphone. Then I untick that so people could hear me. So that I knew, but now I know that when Zoom disconnects, then automatically it is locked. So ask him to enter. Oh, I have unlocked. Enable waiting room. Aro. Okay, let us not wait. Let us continue. Time is fleeting. Now see. The structure of gallium arsenide is very typical. Gallium atom is bonded to 4 arsenic atoms. I just told you. And each arsenic atom is also bonded to 4 gallium atoms. There is a dative bond from each arsenic to one of the gallium atoms. And what happens if you want to make extrinsic, then you can dope it with silicon. That's the beauty. Now, silicon was a virgin semiconductor, which was doped by arsenic or boron independently to get N-type or P-type. But now the semiconductor is gallium arsenide, indium stibide, gallium phosphide. There's a binary semiconductor and a compound semiconductor that is to be doped with silicon. Silicon was doped independently with boron or arsenic. But now gallium arsenide will be doped with a little bit of silicon. If it is doped at high temperature, then silicon occupies gallium sites. Gallium has 3 electrons. Now silicon has 4 electrons. So 1 electron will be free to donate and to become N-type of semiconductors. So at high temperature, so gallium arsenide, I'm talking of gallium arsenide, for example, as a special case, as an example, I take gallium arsenide as the intrinsic binary semiconductor, and we are going to make it extrinsic by doping silicon. So when at high temperature, silicon sits at gallium sites. Since gallium has 3 electrons and silicon has 4 electrons, the extra electron will be ready for conduction. So that produces N type of semiconductors with gallium arsenide. But if it is temperature is low, then it removes arsenic. I mean, it occupies arsenic. Arsenic has 5 electrons. Now silicon has 4 electrons. So there cannot be a dative bond. So one hole will be automatically created in gallium. So that hole will be migrating in one direction, and the electron will hop from the other direction, and that will produce p-type. So remember that gallium arsenide type of binary conductor can be made extrinsic by doping with silicon. And there are many other dopants. I'm not going to discuss the details what other dopants can be used. You can find them in your electronics books or in Google search. There can be many more dopants like magnesium, like beryllium. So many other dopants can be used, but I have taken only silicon as the dopant at high temperature and low temperature. High temperature, it produces N-type because it replaces some of the gallium atoms. One extra electron is there for silicon, and at low temperature it replaces the Cuny arsenic, and that produces one a positive hole, because arsenic has 5 electrons, silicon has 4 electrons, so the dative bond is not possible, and there will be one hole, and that hole will generate other holes by the electron hopping processes, and holes will migrate in one direction, and that will produce p-type of semiconductors. Now we are now ending this program. Application of semiconductors is beyond my comprehension. This is absolutely in the domain of electronics, and like diodes, NP combination used as rectifiers, transistors, NPN, PNP, amplify radio and audio signals, solar cells, photodiode converts light to electricity, light emitting diodes, mostly binary semiconductors like gallium arsenide, indium stibide, gallium phosphide. Those are, of course, after being made as extrinsic, doping with some other dopants to enhance the conductivity by reducing the band gap. Now we talk about superconductors. Still we are left with something about the electrical properties of solids. Now you already know that for all solids there is a critical temperature Tc. But don't confuse this critical temperature to be the critical temperature in gaseous state. That is different. That is for liquefaction. This is something in the solid state, that every solid has a particular temperature, critical temperature, below which there will be no resistance. So it will be a superconductor. When there is no resistance, the vibrations of the atoms, the constituent particles, are completely frozen out. Then the electron is not obstructed in any way. So it moves without any resistance, so conductance becomes infinitely large. For example, mercury is a superconductor at 4.2 Kelvin. It is the critical temperature of mercury. And tungsten and lead are superconductors at 10 Kelvin. Niobium and one of these metals, their combinations, their alloys, they can also act as superconductors between 10 to 23. Just in the early part of in the last part, I mean, and the mid 20th century, a group of semiconductors came into existence. It's called HTSC, high temperature semiconductors. Nobody will use such a low temperature of 10 to 23 Kelvin for any use. It will be pennywise pound foolish. Pennywise pound foolish. In Odia parlance, if I am permitted to speak, the Odia parlance is Ghoda Chotonka ku Dana Notonka. Guys, those who are unable to understand Odia, proverbs, please do not mind. Ghoda chotonga ko dona notonga. Because if such a low temperature is used to get its superconductivity, then the expenditure to go into that low temperature is higher than getting the superconductivity. So you have to have a liquid nitrogen chamber, even in liquid helium. That will be very costly because it evaporates very fast. So that will be more costly than to create some solids which will act as a superconductor at a higher temperature. So scientists started investigating to find some solids. It's not a metal alone, but a combination of many metals and non-metals. So that those groups is called STSC, high temperature superconductors. First one is a non-stoichiometric compound, oxide of copper and oxygen. It's not a stoichiometric compound because copper shows variable valency, so it can give the loss of some copper 2 plus will result some so loss of say copper 1 plus will result some other copper plus to go to copper 2 plus. So in this way some other copper 3 plus, because copper 3 plus is very rare. Forget about it. We cannot widely say what has happened, how the non-stoichiometric copper oxide has been prepared. I don't know, but that was found to be superconductor below 77. Now see what is the hike between the earlier TC values and now 77, which is equal to the boiling temperature of liquid nitrogen, because that at that temperature air is liquefied, liquid nitrogen separates out liquid nitrogen. So it became convenient to use at least at liquid nitrogen temperature, but still it is inconvenient to prepare a lot of liquid nitrogen, put that solid in that environment and seek its superconductivity. Then another alloy came, that is mercury, barium, calcium, copper, oxygen in this stoichiometry, and that exactly is not the same. It is non-stoichiometric, but very close to 12228, and that showed a conductivity of critical temperature of 153, a great hike in the critical temperature. In many other books you find this temperature is 133. Even in NCERT book, I think you find this, but I have collected from several sources that I believe that the critical temperature is higher than what some people call. Then YBCO came. YBCO is a group of STSC, high temperature superconductors. YBCO is the nickname of yttrium, barium, copper oxide. Yttrium, barium, copper oxide is shortly called YBCO. And the first YBCO was this: Y1, barium 2, copper 3, oxygen 7. This was the first YBCO which was having a critical temperature of 92 Kelvin. It was the first STSC above 77. Liquid nitrogen temperature is above that. But later on, very recently, we have another YBCO which is very funny: Y2, Ba10, Cu12, O25 plus 1, 2, 3, 4. You can add, that can be increment over and above 25. So this is a room temperature. Can you believe it? Now the material science and technology has been successful to prepare room temperature SC, but it has not been commercially viable to have such a stable binary. I mean, it's not binary, it is a quaternary 1, 2, 3, 4 compound, and therefore it's not in commercial viability. But the other one, having 33, it was very close to room temperature, is an alloy, I mean oxide of, mixed oxide of tin, antimony, manganese, copper and oxygen. And X is non-stoichiometric variable. Just like X here is variable, here also X is variable. So this is all about superconductors, and the bottom line is every solid can be a superconductor. Every metal can be a superconductor at 0 Kelvin. At 0 Kelvin, all the electrons from the valence band comes to the conduction band and they conduct. But every solid has its own critical temperature, below which it acts as a superconductor. They are usually low. So the first group of STSC, high temperature superconductors, were the non-stoichiometric copper oxide. And then YbCO and other alloys, other compounds, mixed oxides came into existence. And now scientists claim that they have been successful in preparing superconductors even at room temperature. Now we come to the magnetic properties. We can't do that. Let us start writing some salient points. Right? Just write down electrical properties of solids. Number one, don't write the range. Just write down. You write the details later, because this is not a very conceptual thing. This is informative kind of thing. So you can write. I have already given. I don't know whether I have given this today. Today I'll be giving this. I'll be putting in my in our website, from where you can use the code. The password is MMMM, small m 4 times. Even my advisor has restricted the use of the link in the YouTube channel. He says that let them view your video, but to get into your materials, they must have to do a little more effort to contact you, to write to you, and then you give her the password MMMM, and then he will open. Let there be some restriction. I didn't accept what he said, because he is a person of commerce. He is a postgraduate in commerce and is a successful businessman. He runs a huge printing press. Behind what you see in front, it is the start of his business, that is a Xerox unit in 1986. But that, with God's grace, has expanded into a gigantic printing press with all sophisticated and modern printing technology. So he is a genius in the field of commerce, in the field of accountancy, in the field of particularly computer applications. So he is a bachelor, he is a devotee, he is a spiritual activist, and so he is my mentor. Although he's 5 years junior to me, but I consider him as my mentor. And so he advised me to have some restriction, but I didn't want that. I want that knowledge should be free. Knowledge is not anybody's right. It is the divine, possession, property, which you have been gifted to acquire some, maybe an insignificant amount. And the more you share with others, the more, service you will render to the same source which has gifted you the knowledge. Back to our work. Write down electrical properties. Number one, conductors, insulators, and semiconductors. The range, forget about it. Now, I'll be using my thing to remind you what we have done so far, because we can't go to the magnetic properties and dielectric properties today. What has happened? Yes. So you remind me, I don't remember the values. So we'll write something here. Otherwise, it will completely evaporate from our mind. So the magnetic properties, one is conductors, and its conductivity lies between, who can tell me? I have forgotten, 10 to the power 2 to 10 to the power, how much? 9 Simon centimeter inverse. And the other contrast is insulators, which is between 10 to the power -8 to 10 to the power -18 Simon centimeter inverse, if I am not wrong, because I have a very poor memory. Yes. And in between that comes semiconductors. The conductivity lies between 10 to the power 2 to as low as 10 to the -8 Simon centimeter inverse. And the most remarkable difference between the two is conductivity decreases with temperature. And here conductivity, because the band gap is low, so only when you raise the temperature, some electrons will acquire the thermal energy and be promoted to the conduction band and conduct electricity. But here the band gap is 0. Once you are raising thermal energy, the amplitudes of vibration becomes more, there will be more resistance, as Dibya has rightly pointed out, so the conductivity will decrease. So conductivity increases with increase in temperature. Then let us, shall we go to the next page? For the coming 15 minutes, we shall be writing. Not extensively, but some salient points. So, Subham, sorry, Sambit and Ms. Bhod, they are not there. Both of them are absent. So who will represent them? Still, because of Ompan, still the problem, yes, Swayam will represent. Arpita Naik will represent, okay. And KA will represent, okay. Now we go to semiconductors. What type of semiconductors we have? We have elemental semiconductors. I am having a different classification. Elemental semiconductors, that is silicon and germanium, or germanium. And B, binary or compound semiconductor. Like group 13 and group 15 compound, and group 12, I have forgotten to tell that, group 12 and group 16, we'll discuss that also. Like here the example is gallium arsenide, one example, and here zinc, say 16 is selenide. Zinc belongs to group 12, zinc, cadmium, and mercury. And among oxygen family, selenium, tellurium, these are the members of the solid. We don't take oxygen. Not even sulfur has high electronegativity. So it will not match with zinc. It will go for a, ionic bond than covalent bond. We need covalent bond. So zinc arsenide or cadmium telluride, like that. So these are binary semiconductors. So all these two are intrinsic. Intrinsic means no, intrinsic means no doping. They are also called high temperature semiconductors. They only conduct to some extent, I mean, become semiconductors only when the band gap is traversed by raising temperature. So they are not used as such. It's only for the sake of theory. But they made into, these are intrinsic. And they are made into, let's go to the next page, please. We are left with only 15 minutes. Okay. They are converted to extrinsic. They are room temperature semiconductors. By doping, the band gap is reduced. As a result, even at room temperature, the thermal energy is enough for many electrons to go to the conduction band. We'll talk about that later. Room temperature semiconductors, that happens, the intrinsic semiconductors can be converted to extrinsic semiconductors by doping. Doping means mixing thoroughly. Mixing a foreign substance. Say it's called dopant with the former. Former means intrinsic semiconductors. With the former, the room temperature semiconductors can be obtained. That is, extrinsic semiconductors can be obtained by doping some specific foreign impurities. You can call it impurities. Those are called dopants with the intrinsic semiconductors. Now let's talk about the two kinds of extrinsic semiconductors, both elemental as well as binary. First, let us go to the next page. Will I go to the next page? Now, Sambit is missing out, so also Miss Bhol. Okay. Now, doping with silicon or germanium. N type of semiconductors. By doping a small quantity of group 15 elements. For example, phosphorus, arsenic, antimony. We don't take nitrogen because it is a gas, and we don't take bismuth, it is almost a metal. So it is restricted to phosphorus, arsenic, antimony. So what happens, you can draw a picture where silicon is connected with silicon, 4 silicon by a tetrahedral network always. But supposing one of the silicon is replaced by, say, arsenic. And this has got another additional electron, which is unutilized. This is the free electron. because they have the valency 5, whereas silicon has valency 4. So the tetrahedral network is maintained, but one additional electron per dopant atom is set free for conducting electricity. So the conduction, one extra electron is left free with each such dopant atom to conduct electricity. Obviously, when the electrical conduction is possible by free electrons, then it is normal conduction. It is N type of semiconductors. You have not yet discussed about binary. Only elemental semiconductor like silicon or germanium doped with a small quantity of either phosphorus, arsenic, antimony. This is highly confusing. You know, this is elemental semiconductor being doped with another element. But later on we shall study binary semiconductor will be doped with also silicon, which was a elemental semiconductor. There it will be used as a dopant. That's the interesting thing. Now B is P type of semiconductor. By doping silicon or germanium with group 13 elements, particularly boron, aluminum is usually ignored. It is a metal. Gallium, indium, thallium is also ignored. Yes. Now, if you draw the diagram, how a positive hole is created. Now, supposing here we have silicon, silicon, silicon in a network. Oh, sorry, it became 5. Yes. Now, supposing one of them is replaced by boron or gallium, for example. 1, 2, 3, 4. Gallium has only, supposing this is replaced by, say, gallium. Gallium doesn't have 4 electrons. So it has silicon has 1 unpaired electron unutilized, and this is a hole. This is a hole. No electron, the corresponding electron is absent. This is a positive hole, p hole. And any electron from any bonding pair can migrate to produce another hole here. And again, another bonding electron can migrate to produce another hole here. So holes will be migrating in this direction. When a PD is applied, the holes migrate in one direction, and the electrons from the bonding pair occupies the previous hole positions. So that is the creation of P type of semiconductors by doping group 13 element with silicon or germanium. Then let's talk about doping. Is it over? I could not draw a good diagram where this area is free. I counted the valency is met, so I cut it here. It looks free, totally free. Okay, then we go to the doping in binary. doping with binary semiconductors, like, say, for example, gallium arsenide or indium stibide or gallium, thallium is not used, gallium, indium, aluminum is not used. Boron sometimes is used, but for binary, gallium arsenide, gallium, indium stibide, you can use gallium telluride. These are group binary conductors, group 13 and group 15 to form a compound. These compounds have tetrahedral network. Like diamond structure. We already know the diamond structure is very similar to zinc blend structure. Carbon atoms forming the abscissal lattice and carbon atoms occupying the alternate tetrahedral holes. Here also the same similar thing happens. Because the group 15 atom, it forms a dative bond with the group 13 atom in each of the 4 covalent bonds. Now, doping, this is the last thing, doping with silicon, that here is the dopant at higher temperature forms N type of semiconductor. Because at high temperature, silicon replaces group 13 like gallium atoms. So as a result, one extra electron is set free. Silicon has 4 electrons, gallium has 3 electrons, so one extra electron will remain free to behave as an N type of semiconductors. That happens at high temperature applications. But the same silicon dopant, I'll go to the next page, then we will close today's session. I had a planning to cover the magnetic properties and dielectric properties. Never mind, we will sit, yes. Silicon doped at lower temperature, say room temperature or below, produces P type of semiconductor because silicon occupies the position of group 15, say arsenic, gallium arsenide, so arsenic atoms. So as a result, arsenic had 5 electrons to form a dative bond, and now silicon has 4 electrons, so that dative bond cannot be formed. So one place will remain vacant. Only one electron cannot form a dative bond. So one positive hole will be created. So it forms a P type of semiconductors. Now, the last but not the least, to talk something about superconductors. We write a few things, 2 minutes. Every metal at 0K or near 0K is not possible, near 0K behaves as a superconductor. That means resistance is 0. Resistance is 0. But Every solid has a TC. TC means critical temperature. Below which it behaves as a superconductor. For example, mercury has a TC. I don't remember. I have a poor memory. Mercury has a critical temperature of 4.2 and so on. And what I wanted to tell you is the villain, the height HTSC, high temperature superconductor, that in fact revolutionized the electronics industry. High temperature superconductors. And the first one is YBCO. Will I go to the next place? This villain is high temperature superconductors. You know that HTSC, the first one is YBCO. Couples CuMON, non-stoichiometric copper oxide, first one. Then YBCO came. YBCO is nothing but yttrium, barium, copper oxide. YBCO, and the first YBCO was having the empirical formula. Here you can just write down. There are so many things. You write down here. This is the first YBCO. This one. This one you write down. YBA2CU3O7. Its critical temperature was 92, and now this one. You write down this one and this one. Forget about other things. Have a very good day, and we resume our discussion on Saturday, that is 23rd of May. So I will give this material in my website for you to download and study. But that one is also carrying both magnetic as well as dielectric properties. Magnetic properties are fascinating. What is the subtle difference between ferrimagnetic and ferromagnetic and antiferromagnetic and diamagnetic and paramagnetic? So we shall know the concepts, although the details will not be under my domain. This is high core physics, solid state physics. So whatever is within my limitation, I will try to explain that. Bye-bye.